There's some more in the back.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority meeting of July 24th, 2018. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Bierman. Councilmember Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Castleberry.
Here.
Councilmember Hickman.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Holman.
Here.
Councilmember Scott.
Here.
Mayor Miller.
Here. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3 is approval of the City Council special session meetings minutes of June 12th, City Council Finance Committee minutes June 21st, City Council Norman Utility Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority minutes of July 10th, all of 2018. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes by a show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? Same sign. That was unanimous. Item number 4 is a resolution honoring the 2018 recipients of the Citizens Honor Roll of Service. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the resolution.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Same sign. That was unanimous. This year we have 2 recipients. Our recipients are Amanda Nairn and Andy Shearer, and I couldn't be happier about recognizing them because of all the amazing things they've done for our community. This is a resolution of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, honoring the 2018 recipients of the Citizens Honor Roll of Service. Whereas the City Council adopted the Citizen Recognition Policy on October 28, 2008, and wishes to acknowledge the leadership of its citizens on boards, commissions, and important civic projects. And whereas the Citizens Honor Roll of Service is intended to honor an individual whose work benefits or has benefited the quality of life in Norman by building on and making the efforts of government richer and more successful. Whereas Amanda Nairn was appointed to the Environmental Control Advisory Board on September 13th, 2011, serving as chair since 2012, and was appointed to the Central Oklahoma Master Conservancy District on October 27, 2014, and whereas Andy Shearer was appointed to the Planning Commission on August 11, 2009, serving as chair during the 2012 and 2013, and whereas Norman has experienced stormwater and flooding problems for many years, and the city did not have the means to deal with the infrastructure and maintenance needed to address the issues, so ultimately an election was held on August 23rd in 2016, asking voters to approve the utility creating a monthly fee for stormwater improvements and maintenance, but the election was unsuccessful. And whereas a Stormwater Citizen Steering Committee was established on April 25th, 2017, with Amanda Nairn and Andy Shearer as co-chairs to look at flooding and water quality issues from the community's perspective in order to make recommendations to the council of a plan that would be better received by the voters. And whereas Amanda and Andy's leadership in this effort is remarkable, as they have worked tirelessly along with the entire community to educate the public and gather information via surveys, surveys, speaking to citizens group and civic clubs, and hosting stormwater open houses to present the council with a comprehensive report and recommendations to address the city's stormwater needs. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, that Amanda Nairn and Andy Shear be named the 2000 recipients of the Citizen Honor Roll of Service for their unfailing dedication and contributions to the citizens of Norman. And at this time, I would like to ask Amanda and Andy to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this wonderful recognition. It's an honor to serve this city, and I appreciate you all for putting your trust in me and in us. And the Stormwater Committee has been great. I didn't know Andy before we started, and we've made a really good team. I just want to share something very quickly. My dad passed away this year after a brief illness, and he served his city council in the town I grew up for 12 years. Today is his birthday.
Oh.
So thank you for the recognition, and thank you for the day.
I just want to reiterate Amanda's comments that we appreciate so much the effort and the support that so many of you have given to us over the last year. We're a long ways from getting to where we want to be as it relates to stormwater, but we look forward to continuing that as we receive public input. Many of you have attended open houses over the last few weeks. We'll have several of those continuing over the next few weeks, and we want public input. I think each of you knows how important solving our stormwater concerns and issues that we have in the community are. And Amanda and I and the rest of the committee look forward to being a part of that in the future. So again, thank you very much for this honor. We very much appreciate you.
I just cannot stress enough how much those two individuals have done for our community, not just this year, but Andy has served on the Planning Commission for a number of years. Amanda has been part of the Environmental Control Advisory Board and the COMCD. If you want people protecting your water, you have got those two soldiers protecting your water. And they have spent countless hours here at City Hall, working with staff, working with committee members, working with council members, and working with citizens. So I don't think there's anybody that we could have recognized that would have been more deserving. So thank you all so very much. At this time, I'd like to announce that we've received an email notification this afternoon. The council members were sent the email after we received it in the office from the OU Foundation, requesting that the proposed resolution related to the agreement, the arena and the entertainment district outlined in item 25 be withdrawn. And due to the fact that the foundation is asking for it to be withdrawn, the council has indicated their desire not to study this issue further. It is my recommendation that we go ahead and withdraw item 25 from the agenda. Hearing no objections from the council members. Okay.
I'm concerned about postponing this, or I'm concerned about pushing it off because it seems that these kinds of things kick the can down the road, and there's a whole lot of public perception that we as a council are driving this. So I want to make it perfectly clear that I do not support this plan, and I would prefer to vote on it.
Councilmember Hickman.
I guess, Mayor, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, that we're going to withdraw it. I mean, but what do you, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
All we're doing is withdrawing item 25. Item 25 simply said we were going to send it to the statutory committee, which by other votes from the council, we've indicated that because we did not continue the study, that we weren't interested in sending it on. So, I mean, I'm not really understanding why we would even vote on it. If the foundation is withdrawing their pursuit of working with us, and the council has already said they don't want to study it anymore, then it looks like it's dead.
I guess that's what
for
I'm
us.
confused about. Has council said that they don't want to study anymore? We didn't vote for the HVS study. But there were folks who, had, I thought, expressed a willingness to send it on to the statutory committee. I guess I don't understand what withdrawal does. Does that tell our staff that we might still be interested and keep working on it? Because it seems to be some confusion based on emails that I've seen about whether or not council does or does not want staff to work on this. Or is this simply, in a sense, a postponement, and it could be asked to be put back on an agenda in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something?
Well, I don't think this is not a postponement. This is a withdrawal. And I don't think there's been any indication from the council that we want the staff to continue working on this. I haven't indicated to the staff that I want them to continue working on it.
I guess at this point, I don't know why we wouldn't just go forward with voting on it, just to make sure that it's abundantly clear whether what our staff should and should not be working on and where this matter stands.
Councilmember Carter.
To vote on it. I think we need some finality to this whole process.
Councilmember Casper.
I guess my question is, in the past, anytime an applicant has pulled, they are the applicant. They're the ones that brought this whole plan forward. They are the applicant. This is not the city's plan. This is the foundation's plan. They are the applicant. Am I correct on that, Mr. Bryant? I guess that's my question. I mean, my question is, in the past, anytime an applicant has come forward, but usually on zoning, says, I want to pull it, I don't want to do it, we've always honored the request because the applicant is the master of their application. That's always been our standard. And this is the same situation?
Well, normally on zoning cases, you are correct. This is a little bit different than a zoning case, although they do have a zoning application that would be coming up in August. I would assume they would withdraw that. But what's before council, as the mayor mentioned, is whether or not to move this forward to the statutory review committee. Certainly it's council's prerogative to vote on that or not. I think the point that was being made is if the foundation is withdrawing, then there's not really
what do we
reason
take
to
to the statutory committee? Why are we voting to take it or not take it? What are we taking to them?
If they're
Councilmember Wilson.
Well, I'm seeing this as a resolution that was created by us, that to send or not to send this to the statutory review committee. There's a lot of stuff in this resolution, which is scary. But I just want to make it clear, and I think a vote, yes or no, would help make sure that we're on the record and we're clear, and that there's none of that, Sarita's confused emails and stuff like that. Like, I want to make sure that everybody has clear direction on this. So whether we withdraw it or vote on it, I don't care, but I want clear direction on the record. Maybe that's me doing that right now.
Okay. Councilmember Holman.
Just in my recollection of someone withdrawing an application, that means they are no longer intending to do the project anymore. They are giving up. It is over. That's what a withdrawal means. So by them requesting to withdraw, that means the OU Foundation is saying they don't want to do this project anymore. That's it.
Yeah, Councilmember Carter.
Well, it means they're not trying to come through us.
It says they just want to do further review. It's not, I mean, am I misreading that?
Process with the city of Norman. I mean, if they still want to do it, they'd have to go through their own private means, I suppose. But this says to me they are withdrawing all activity and discussion with the city on this particular project.
They're withdrawing what they're doing with the city council.
They're killing their project is what a withdrawal means to me.
Councilmember Hickman.
I guess I'm also confused about this process. Why are we discussing item 20, whatever it is, 6, that's on non-consent when we're just getting ready to start the consent agenda? Why isn't that being brought up as we get to that agenda item? I guess I'm just even confused by this procedural move, considering all the other procedural issues that there have been in regard to this topic. Why are we talking about it now? Why don't we get through the consent agenda?
We're taking it off the agenda.
Because we're just talking about taking it off the agenda altogether.
But we typically do that if there's a request like that or postponement. I recall at the time we get to that agenda item.
No, we do it at the very beginning.
I think we usually do it at the beginning.
It's usually staff wants to remove something or because you're going to have to make a motion to list the items. And then we'd have to talk on them. So if you're going to pull it, you would do it beforehand.
Well, it's not on the consent agenda. It's on the non-consent agenda.
Well, either.
That is correct.
This is a non-consent item.
It is a non-consent
So
item.
that's my point is why aren't we talking about this issue when we got to that non-consent item?
Well, we can do it now or we can do it then. I put it on here. We're doing it now. So we're discussing it. We're not to the item yet.
Everybody go home if we do it.
So does there have to be a motion to withdraw it?
She made one.
There was an objection. As chair, I said, I recommended that we withdraw it. I had an objection, so we're discussing it now.
I will withdraw my objection with full statement. I am not for this project. I do not want to see it again with a funding from the city. I do not support it.
Okay, so if we do not have an objection, then it is removed from the agenda. Council member.
I didn't press my button.
Scott.
Would it be possible for somebody from the OU Foundation to just kind of clear it up for us and make sure that we all understand that this, withdrawal means that this is done, it's over, we don't have to see this again, we can move on to stormwater, something like that? Would that be okay?
Mr. Rieger, are you representing the foundation?
I am, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Councilmember, I appreciate that. It was our request this afternoon that we submitted that we would request you withdraw what is your application for the TIF to go forward. It's been a long process. It's been a process that has garnered discussion, obviously, at an extraordinary level, and we appreciate that. We're glad that this has garnered the passion that it has. I like to see that in the community. We all do. We heard Matt Tarleton's discussion earlier tonight discuss a little bit of that. He discussed placemaking and all kinds of things. This land doesn't go away. It's still the foundation's land. It's still their efforts and their desires to make sure that it's a great piece of land that develops well for the city of Norman and that it perhaps creates the mixed use and the placemaking and all of those things that Matt Tarleton talked about. But it's clear that this process to go through to the statutory TIF committee is without consensus. It's clear that this particular procedure has not arrived at consensus. We're aware of that. It's quite obvious. So we would rather take a step back and look and work with the community stakeholders, work with, as Matt Tarleton said, work with you further, work with the chamber, work with everybody to see what is the consensus of how we proceed here. It's not this. It's not this going to the statutory TIF committee tonight. That's clear. And so what value is gained from that discussion when you have applicant, or whatever you want to call it, standing before you say, we agree with you that it's time to figure out what we do next outside of this process. I don't know what you gain from that. So we're ready to continue to work on what is a piece of land that is not going away. what is a piece of land that can provide a lot of those things that Matt Tarleton talked about. We just need to find that consensus. And we're ready to do that. But I don't think you will find that tonight. I think that's quite obvious. So we believe the constructive thing to do is to not go through that tonight for the obvious reason, an obvious result that you will have. And let's reboot, let's figure out what the next step is in a different form.
So
we appreciate that.
There's no expectation that the council is moving forward on this in any way.
That is correct.
And is that indefinite or is that short term? What should we expect?
Well, we certainly will continue efforts to see how we develop this land. The land doesn't go away. The need to develop it doesn't go away. The interest in the land doesn't go away. This process of a TIF through this city council for a sales tax funding option, as in your resolution tonight, we are withdrawing our effort to make that happen.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Wilson.
Mr. Reeker, I just have a real quick question for everybody's benefit, that if in the future OU Foundation or any other entity brings that piece of land to council for a zoning request, a PUD, a change in zoning, a commercial, an arena of any kind, that doesn't mean you're asking for a tax increment finance or financing from the city of Norman.
At this time,
Just in case you
yeah.
find a thing in the future.
At this time, no.
Clarifying, okay. But just because you ask for a zoning request doesn't mean you're also asking for funding.
No, no. Zoning is a separate piece. Zoning is,
So you could actually get it zoned how you want it through us. We could approve that and nobody's going to, beat me up when I leave here.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Wow.
I won't beat you up, okay?
I know
Is
you
that-
won't. You're very kind. I know. I appreciate that.
The issue is that they're not going to tell us, they may not ever come back to us with rezoning the land. That is their land. They have a right to come back to us and say, we want to do this with it. Right now, what they've uncoupled is the whole TIF discussion. So.
Absolutely. I just want to make that really apparent for everybody that's here tonight and on the television and the YouTube and what have you, that a zoning request is separate from, I just want to say it like 5 million times. Zoning request separate from TIF.
That is correct.
It is separate.
Indeed, that's what we said at Planning Commission. Yes. Thank you.
Which is why the Planning Commission went ahead and approved it, because that's not their issue. Okay. Councilmember Castleberry.
Okay, so clarification. I see all those little green signs around town that says no UMP, but then in the very bottom it says, not with our tax dollars. I don't see no UMP, develop it on your own. I mean, nobody said, I've never heard anybody say, it's always been no arena. If it's such a great deal, you pay for it yourself. It's all been about the public financing. And that's what this is. So you're pulling that part off.
This resolution tonight, yes. Councilmember, I've heard so many options. I don't think I could do it on one legal pad of
Right.
how many different options to do this project in this location in any different form of financing. It's infinite, the number of options. This resolution in front of you tonight, we have asked that you, as your application, withdraw it.
Well, I guess I'd say if you don't want to go through the process, I sure as heck don't want to go through the process. And I'd make a motion to withdraw this from the agenda item and just be done with it. And everybody can go home. Early, if they want, or you can stick around.
I'm not sure we even need that if the objection's
If you just, okay.
withdrawn. Councilmember Carter.
Well, I believe this is a city resolution and the city put it on the agenda, and I believe we should vote on it. So I guess I object.
Right. Okay, so you want to make your motion now?
Since we have an objection, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and pull it off the agenda and be done with it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And we will vote on it.
Any more discussion from the council?
There's an objection.
Councilmember Hickman. Okay. Councilmember Carter. Okay. Oh, those were pressed before. Hearing no more comments from the council, since this is a procedural vote, you may cast your votes. Now, wait, let me repeat what we're voting on. We're voting to withdraw item 25. We're not going to even consider sending it to the statutory committee because at this point, OU has withdrawn. So at this point, we're withdrawing it. So if you vote yes, you're voting to withdraw item 25. Mine's not.
Oh, sorry.
It doesn't. Oh, wrong one. I could keep pressing that all night.
The vote passed 5-3. Voting against, Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Hickman, Councilmember Carter. Item 25 has now been withdrawn from the agenda.
All right. This brings us to the consent docket, item number 5. This item is placed on the agenda so that the City Council, by unanimous consent, those routine agenda items that they wish to be approved or acknowledged by one motion. I need a motion to place items 6 through 22 on the consent docket, with the exception of item 17, which is being withdrawn by the staff. This is a regular procedural thing that we do. It means the staff's not ready for
So
this
moved.
item to go.
Second.
I had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Those opposed, same sign. That was unanimous. Item 6 is an ordinance to grant historic district designation to both the east and west sides of College Avenue between Sims Street on the north and Boyd Street on the south. Item 7, Finance Investment Report as of June 30th, 2018. Item 8, Monthly Departmental Reports for the month of June 2018. Item 9, Final Election Report for the Norman Election Commission for 2018. Item 10 is a request for a proposal, approval of a contract with Sun Construction Services in the amount of $65,017, performance bond, statutory bond and maintenance bond for the Sooner Theater dressing room renovation project, and a resolution granting tax exempt status. Item 11 is a contract with Central Contracting Services in the amount of $1,451,515. Change order number 1, increasing the contract amount by $95,961 for a revised contract amount of $1,547,476. A performance bond, statutory bond, and maintenance bond for the Urban Concrete Pavement Street Maintenance Bond Program. FYE 19 locations, and adoption of a resolution granting tax exempt status. Item 12 is a contract with Silver Star Construction in the amount of $1,651,700, a performance bond, a statutory bond, and a maintenance bond for the Urban Asphalt Pavement Street Maintenance Bond Program. Adoption of a resolution granting tax exempt status, and a budget transfer between project accounts. Item 13 is a contract with Central Contracting Services in the amount of $329,550. Change order 1, increasing the contract amount by $112,200 for a revised contract amount of $441,750. A performance bond, statutory bond, and maintenance bond for the FYE 2019 concrete sidewalk projects, and adoption of a resolution granting tax exempt status. Item 14 is a certificate of plat correction for the Millennium Edition, generally located at southeast corner of Lindsay and Classen. Item 15 is a donation in the amount of $2,200 from the Austin Pets Alive to pay costs for employee training and travel expenses for the Norman Animal Welfare Center. Item 16 is a change order. It's change order number 7 to a contract with West McNatt and Company, adding 14 calendar days to the contract for Norman Forward Westwood Family Aquatic Center project, and a final acceptance and final payment for the project. Item 17 has been withdrawn. Item 18 is a change order with Lippert Brothers, increasing the contract amount by $66,171 for a revised contract amount of $937,723 to relocate the power for the light poles between fields 8 and 9. Revised the grading on fields 8 due to the raising the height of the retaining wall, and revised the grading on field 9 due to the elevation of the existing irrigation system that is on the Griffin fields. Item 19 is a contract with Metropolitan Fair Housing Council in the amount of $20,000 as agreed upon under the 44th year of the CDBG program and the FYE 2018 Home Investment Partnership Program. Item 20 is a contract with the Alternative Dispute Resolution System of the State of Oklahoma for the purpose of certifying Norman's dispute mediation program beginning July 1 and ending June 30th, 2019. Item 29 is a contract with Crossroads Youth and Family for the operation of an emergency youth shelter and budget appropriation in the amount of $40,000 from the Seizures and Restitution Fund balance. Item 22 is a resolution authorizing the Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority to optionally redeem the outstanding amount of its tax increment revenue note, taxable series 2013, originally issued in the aggregate principal amount of $14,215,000, and appropriation of University North Park Tax Increment Finance Fund balance. I need a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. I do. I need a motion to approve or reject the consent docket.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Are there any comments from the council on the consent? Councilmember Hickman.
Yes, I have a question about item number 10, and I think maybe that might be you, Judd. Since this is for our beautiful historic Sooner Theater and for all the folks in our community that support the arts, if you could just give us, the elevator speech of what we're doing here at the Sooner Theater, I think that'd be great for the community.
Sure, thanks. Judd Foster, Parks and Recreation Director, and this project is continuation of a long list of improvements that have been happening over at the theater. The work here is focused in the dressing room down below the stage, working with the flooring and the little kitchenette area and storage areas, all of the areas below stage that's known as the dressing room, and also the stairway and access to that area, renovation of all that space.
And how long is that renovation expected to take, and will it impact any performances?
It will not. It's expected to be, I believe, about 3 months or 2 months, maybe. It's planned in the what's known as the dark part of the calendar, where there's not very many activities planned at the theater, and that was all set up in advance for that reason.
Thanks, Judd.
Sure.
Councilmember Wilson.
I would like Anthony Francis. Is Anthony still here? To clarify item number 22, what that means. I know what it means, but just for everybody else.
Good evening, Councilmember Wilson, members of the council. I'm Anthony Francisco, the Finance Director and the Treasurer of the Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority. Item number 22 is a resolution that council would be directing myself and staff to pay off or redeem the outstanding debt on the University North Park Tax Increment Finance District. We have about $10,800,000 of outstanding debt. We have a little over $20 million available for projects. We can pay off the debt and still have about $10 million left over to pay for authorized projects. So we studied this at the study session last week, but we would recommend that we redeem those notes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Councilmember Castleberry,
Anthony?
quick, come back.
I had two questions. First, I just wanted to clarify, this is the earliest we could have paid this off. I had some people question me like, well, if you had $20 million, why didn't you pay it off last year? Could you talk about why we're paying it off now and why we didn't pay it off previously? This is the call provision.
Yes, sir. The call provision has an optional redemption date of the first call date to be September 1st of 2018. You can pay the debt on any principal payment date. So we could wait another year, but in that case, of course, we'd be paying another year's worth of interest. So in order to optimize the amount of interest savings, we'd like to do it on this first call date.
But we could have paid it off last year and we would have still paid interest.
We would have still paid that, yeah, the interest that was due.
So we would have taken the $10 million out of our checking account drawing interest, paid it down and not saved any interest. That's why we didn't do it last year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My next question, I guess, would be for Judd. Well, that's really more of a statement, I guess. I just want to point out that on item, and I just went blank on my screen.
What's it about?
Okay, item 16 on the Westwood Pool. I just want to point out to people that we had in some of our contracts, we have incentive performance clauses in there, and we also have disincentive clauses in there. And this is actually on Westwood, since they were late opening it up there, we knocked $157,000 off their contract. So I know a lot of people say the city only, we don't hold contractors responsible. This is a situation where we are holding the contractor responsible. And I want to just point that out, that it goes both ways. We have some incentives to get work done early, and we have disincentives when it goes over budget. And they went over budget, I think, like 80 something, not over budget, but the time days. And so there's a $157,000 adjustment, which will be a savings to Norman Forward. So.
No. Any other comments? The motion on the floor is to approve the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes. Quit hiccuping.
All votes have been cast and the consent docket was approved unanimously.
Item 23 is an ordinance closing a portion of the right-of-way south of Rock Creek Road and west of Pendleton Drive. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
So moved.
You have that every single day.
Do I have a second? Catherine Walker is.
Thank you. I'm Catherine Walker with the City Attorney's Office. And with your indulgence, I'd like to talk about the next two items because they're somewhat related.
Okay.
Item number 23 has to do with the closure of an old portion of Rock Creek Road. And then item number 24 is a rezoning application that is impacted by that closure. So the Rock Creek overpass, we talked a little bit about last week. In 2008, we learned that after years of believing that ODOT would not approve an overpass over I-35 at Rock Creek, that they would indeed allow one. And so we went through an acquisition process to make sure we had the property for the bridge, not just the bridge, but also to connect Rock Creek on either side of the bridge. On the west side of I-35 in particular, this resulted in some transactions to purchase property. We had a three-party transaction that we worked with S&S Properties and a property owner called Terra Verde LLC. The cooperation of these parties was critical in getting some ACOG funding. We learned late in ACOG's process that Del City had withdrawn a project from the ACOG award process, and we were able to access about $1.5 million for this project because of the cooperation of these property owners. The agreement provided for the transfer of almost 12 acres to the city for the realigned Rock Creek Road west of the overpass, and then a separate transaction between S&S Properties and Terra Verde LLC resulted in another 1.06 acres of right-of-way being transferred to the city along the I-35 service road. The transactions left two small parcels south of the new Rock Creek Road and west of I-35, and you can see those highlighted in yellow on the map here. The larger parcel is to the left of Pendleton Drive, and to the right is the smaller parcel. And just to the north of that is the new Rock Creek alignment. And so the old concrete's been taken out from the old Rock Creek Road, but that statutory right-of-way still exists. And so the city's been maintaining it. It's not able to be developed. In part of that contract with S&S Properties, the city did several things, actually. The parcels were recognized as commercial properties in the contract under the 2025 land use plan. There was a provision about if the landowner wanted to develop those properties, and it said that parcels upon appropriate application will be considered for development, but with some conditions. On that west parcel, the conditions set forth in the agreement approved by council stated that it could only be a single-story commercial retail store, and that has to include parking. And there would be no curb cuts on Rock Creek Road. The access to this parcel is only via the southeast corner on Pendleton. The east parcel cannot be developed. It's limited to drainage and open space requirements for the west parcel. And then restrictive covenants were required to evidence these conditions as the property moved forward for development. It also provided that the city would consent to closing the public street portion of the existing, at the time, Rock Creek Road, which of course is no longer there. And as I said, the concrete has already been taken up west of Pendleton. So ordinance number 171852, which is item number 23 on your agenda, is the first step in effectuating the contractual provision related to closure of Old Rock Creek Road. And this would close the northern portion of the statutory right-of-way west of Pendleton. So the northern 33 feet, and you can see it depicted in that map there. Once closed and vacated, our ordinance provides, and state law provides, the ownership of the northern half of the right-of-way that's adjacent to the S&S property reverts back to the property owner. So S&S property will own that property. Item number 24 is the rezoning application. The reason we're moving forward with the closure now is because the property owner has requested a rezoning, and you have that application in your packets. Originally, it was a request to go from A2 to C2 zoning, but it's been changed to C1. This is consistent with the land use designation granted in 2009. The applicant received some feedback from neighbors at Planning Commission, and so we've received restrictive covenants that further limit the allowed uses in C1 zoning. And those uses that are prohibited include bars, liquor stores, live entertainment, any drive-through lane or window that has an outside speaker, any other outside speaker, and then the operating hours cannot be between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And I have in my office those covenants. If this is approved, we will get those filed. And they will run with the property. So with that, I know that applicants are here. If you all want to hear from them, and if you have any other questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
I'm Sandy Kerr. I live at 3900 Montalina Court.
And I'm Sherry Clark. I live at 3004 Rolling Woods. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Some of what you're going to hear us say, Catherine has already covered, but we're just going to kind of reiterate it. Okay, in 2009, my sister and I owned the land that was on the north side of the center line of Old Rock Creek Road. It ran between 36th and I-35. This land was where we grew up, and it was land that we got from inheritance from our parents. The city of Norman had to acquire part of that land to provide for the easements needed to allow Rock Creek Road to be relocated so that it connected to the new Rock Creek Bridge over I-35. The city did not have enough money to pay us fair market value for what they were taking. Long story short, we negotiated a contract that gave to the city the land it needed, and it provided us with what we believed would in turn give us fair market value, including a small commercial building site allowed under tonight's Ordinance 53. On June 9, 2009, the City Council unanimously approved that contract. You have a copy in your packet. It is and has been a legally binding contract since June 9, 2009. The city then dug up and removed the Rock Creek Road concrete for a 422-foot strip west of Pendleton for the entire 66-foot width of Rock Creek Highway right-of-way, being our 33 feet on the north side of Rock Creek and the neighbor's 33 feet on the south side of the section line. Up to that point in time, all lanes of Rock Creek Road were located adjacent to the rear fences of the homes on the north side of Remington Street, as shown on your aerial photo from 2007. You can see on your aerial photo from 2017 the relocated part of Rock Creek Road. After the Planning Commission meeting, we had a cordial and constructive meeting with Brenda Toland, one of the organizers of the neighbors' protest. We asked if she would ask her neighbors to identify what specific restrictions they would find acceptable in our zoning application. Our attorney left his card and said he would be available to work with them at any time. When we did not hear back, we took it upon ourselves to modify our application from C2, general commercial, to C1, local commercial, and to impose enforceable restrictions as to what could and could not be developed on our small tract west of Pendleton. On June 29th, we mailed outlines of our amendments to each of the 13 protest letter writers. On July 12th, our attorney received a letter stating that they would withdraw their protests if our application was changed to CO office. That designation and the additional restrictions added in their letter are contrary to terms of our contract and are completely unacceptable to us. On that same day, July 12th, our attorney responded to their letter.
We have delivered, signed, and notarized 2 restrictive covenants documents, one west of Pendleton and the other east of Pendleton, to the city attorney. Along with cash for filing fees of county clerk, he will hold them in trust contingent on the outcome of tonight's votes. If both ordinances, I can't say that now.
Ordinances
52 and 53 are approved tonight, the city attorney will cause both restrictive documents to be filed at the courthouse. If both ordinances are not approved, he will return the unfiled restrictions to our attorney. You have received copies of our amended C2 application. C1 application, and the list of the only specific business uses which will be allowed on this small parcel. The amendments and restrictions which we have inserted since the Planning Commission meeting show respect and concern and concessions for the neighbors' protest. There are 2 things remaining to be done on tonight's agenda. A, approve the ordinance 52 closing a 422-foot strip of the 33-foot right-of-way north of the section line. And 2, approve ordinance 53 granting C1 restricted use zoning on the small west parcel described in the ordinance. Passage of both of those ordinances is essential for the city to honor its commitments in the 2009 agreement. Please approve both of these ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Castleberry.
Yes, this is really more a question for the city attorney. This is basically just us honoring a contract we made back in 2009.
Contract on the vacation was clear. There was not a contractual commitment on the zoning because you can't do contract zoning. However, we did recognize in the contract that we did change the land use plan to more intense, recognizing with a 4-lane road going through there and some of the other commercial activities that a commercial type zoning would be appropriate. Now, what that zoning would be, of course, is left to the discretion of the council, and that's why they're here tonight.
Okay.
The restrictions.
And there's no curb cuts on Rock Creek. This is going to be, okay, let's clarify that. Thank you.
Councilmember Scott.
Hello.
Hi.
Can we take a look at the aerial view on the slide show, please?
It's really hard to tell where this is.
So I drive through this area every single day on my way to work. And so I'm pretty familiar with it. The area on Pendleton where you take Rock Creek Trail right over to that access road up to I-35, it's a really wonderful way for me to skip all of the lights on 36. So I'm very familiar with it. There's one stop. You're pretty familiar with the area too, right? So you know that if you're coming west on Rock Creek Trail, there's a stop sign there, and there's just the one stop sign. But there are cars coming in off of Rock Creek, and there are also cars coming out of the neighborhood. So when I come home, I'm stopping there, and sometimes when I'm turning left into my neighborhood, it is extremely difficult to gauge where the cars are coming in off of Rock Creek. So sometimes I'll be looking right, looks clear, I look left, I start to turn, and lo and behold, there is a car right there coming right at me. And I didn't mean to cut them off, but that's what's happening, right? So it's not a safe place right now. So I have some questions. I'm new to council, and I have received, I want to be open-minded to this, but because I'm so familiar with this spot personally, I know how dangerous it is. And so I'm curious about a couple of things. What do you intend to do with this area? Have you talked to my neighbors? And you said you had some neighbors protest. What are their concerns? I mean, because we drive through this area every day, and the neighborhood to Walmart's right across the street. It's convenient. And but this area, I mean, the only way to get to it right now is to walk on the sidewalk right next to it, right? So you can't see the sidewalk on this view, but right there on Rock Creek, there's the sidewalk, and then also going south and then around. So I'm wondering what the land will be used for, how you intend to get people, if it's going to be commercial, where are you going to have, there we go, thank you. Yeah, so there's that sidewalk that I was telling you about that I walk my dogs on frequently. And then that big patch of grass that I also run them through. So I want to know what are the intentions here?
Intentions in what way?
I mean, what do you want to do with this land?
Well, we will sell it, and so
Let somebody else develop it.
so we don't have a
Oh,
specific
okay.
use planned for it.
Okay. Okay.
We would be talking about those issues when it came before us.
Yeah,
for
okay, that's what I'm
example,
concerned about. That's my concern is
Yeah.
that's not a safe spot to put anything right now, at all. So, that's your land. You can sell it if you want, but you can just want to make sure that the people in the area are safe.
Mr. O'Leary,
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sean O'Leary, Director of Public Works. Councilmember, if it helps at all, this process tonight is to consider the vacation of the land so they can couple that with their other property shown in yellow. That would then create a parcel that could be large enough to put a small building and a small parking lot, we anticipate. But before all of that would happen, assuming you vote in favor of these two items tonight, this would come through a platting process, and council would see the plat of this parcel, and you would see a site plan that would show the details. I think you're looking for the building, the parking lot, access off of Pendleton and so on, but we're not quite to that stage yet this evening.
So is Pendleton going to remain open to Rock Creek then?
Yeah, there would be no changes
No change to
whatsoever
that
in
area?
infrastructure, no changes to the sidewalk that you mentioned, no changes to any of the roadways whatsoever.
Can we get some signs over there that say slow? You're the public works guy, right?
Happy to talk with you, but we don't usually do those kind of signs here in Norman, but happy to
Something
talk
over
with you
there
about.
that
Sure.
says another stop sign or slow or beware of danger or something.
Sure. Happy to follow up, Councilor. We're not aware of any accident
Okay.
experience there, but I'm happy to follow up and sort through that if that's
Thank
occurring.
you.
You're welcome.
That was my concern. I'm sorry. I am, again, walking into this one. This is what, week 2 or something for me? 3.
it's fine. It takes a long time to learn all these different steps in the process, even when we've done them a whole lot of
Okay.
times.
Thank you for answering.
Any other questions? Okay, I think you can sit down. This is the time for the public. Any public comments? Yes, sir.
My name is William Sims, and I live at 3400 Remington, which is on the corner of Pendleton and Remington. To our councilwoman's point, it is extremely dangerous at that intersection currently. It will only continue to get worse as the development across the street continues to take and become more occupied. In addition to that, what you can't see is up there where it says Rock Creek Parcels is a apartment complex which has a huge number of residents that all have to come out that street right there. And to get to the service road, they have to turn and go up, which causes the councilwoman's traffic concern. And when you're coming home, if you want to take and go to the neighborhood Walmart before you come in, you can't get on to Pendleton, let alone cross it, because of all the traffic today. And as University Park continues to grow, it's only going to continue to get worse. To Councilman Castleberry's comment about there would be no access off of Rock Creek, that's even makes it worse because of the fact that the only access will be off of Pendleton on the southeast corner, which makes that whole intersection a complete disaster. And so I would recommend and ask for your denial of this proposal because of the potential to the neighborhood and the safety of the kids and or the citizens of it. And also a big concern is when the 2009 agreement was done, it was done in a state of haste. I appreciate that council's at that time's action to taking that haste. However, the problem is that us as the residents there had no input to any of this. And it was agreement that was made between the city and the landowners and without any public input. And so to make that commercial is a complete devaluation of our property, a hazard to our community. And I just really, would like to ask you to take that into consideration. The other thing is that at the Planning Commission meeting, we asked if there was any traffic survey done. There was no traffic survey done. So we have no traffic information in regards to the traffic. We asked, there's a high voltage power line that runs through there. What was the plans for the high voltage power lines? No answer. So we're not really sure what the plan is and how it'll be done. Are we going to move the high voltage lines onto the back of the backyards of the people there? Or are we going to take and, there's just too many unknowns with it. And I would, really request that you take and vote against this. Thank you.
Okay, I would just repeat what Mr. O'Leary said about so many of those things, those individual details about what happens with properties come when we go through the platting and the other processes that they have to go through. And it'll have to go through a whole long process if and when this is sold, which it hasn't been at this time, I understand. Councilmember Hickman. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I come up?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Okay. My name is Brandon Buss, and I live at 3409 Remington Street, which is the third house that backs up to this property. And once again, the traffic is a concern for all the residents there. In the house on the corner there, there's been, since in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been 3 to 4 cars that have went into that backyard right there. So it's already a traffic concern. There's been some that jumped the curb that hadn't went into the backyard of that particular residence, but that is a major concern, is the traffic right there. Another thing is I talked to an appraiser. Appraiser said, depending on what goes back there, it could decrease our property values 5 to 10%. That concerns me as well, right? I mean, this is my property. I bought this before knowing any of this, knowing that that was a street whenever I bought it originally. That was the original street. There was no commercial property right there. There was a street there. But I had no interest in buying a property that backed up to some type of a commercial retail. So we did as a group. Some of the people that turned in the letters did go back to the ladies, like they said, to their lawyer and said, we would be more than willing to do with the CO zoning is what we requested, because kind of like what you said, Ms. Scott, is that we don't want the big traffic going in there, right? We have children that go, there's lots of people that use that sidewalk right there to get down to the Walmart. that walk out of the neighborhood down that way. And CO is more of a, correct me if I'm wrong, is more of a office type situation, like some of the like some on the north side of Rock Creek Road are. It's going to limit the amount of traffic that goes in and out of that area. And it's also going to limit what's basically in my backyard. Okay, there's 33 feet that is going to be, I guess, is being requested to be turned over to S&S, the north side. The south side is still 33 feet. 33 feet is not to the back of this auditorium here. So that's not very far from my backyard. So for me, I don't want a piece of retail right behind my backyard. That's not what I bought my piece of property for. I understand that these ladies have a right to sell that property. But for me, I'm asking for a different rezoning, for you to consider a different rezoning if we rezone it from an agricultural standpoint. Just like like Stormy said, the gentleman that was before me, the Planning Commission, as you well know, turned it down. They rejected it. You know, we're not asking you to necessarily reject it, just to change the zoning issues. Yes, I would be thrilled if we rejected it altogether and kept it agricultural, but I do understand that they are wanting to profit off of this as well. It's their property, right? So there is an understanding there. I think that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Solan Ho. I live in the second house on north of Remington Street, and my sister is on the corner house. And you all already heard enough of the concern for the traffic and the dangerous situation. But I'm telling you our experience in the past. A couple of years ago, there is a car went into my sister's backyard. And it happened in the middle of the night. And she looked through the window, she didn't see what it was. And the next day she saw 3 panels from her backyard fence were down. And there was a car. It was deep into the mud and on the grass area. She didn't know what to do. She just wanted to go to work. And she even didn't call her insurance. When she came back from home, the car was gone. She paid and fixed the fence. 4 months later, it was in a rainy day in the late afternoon. We were all at home. And bang, another car went into the same spot and mowed down 3 panels of her fence and mowed down 2 trees. The car did not stop. All the way went through her backyard, came to my backyard, knocked down 1 panel, and left another panel hanging by the straw. And the front of the car was in my backyard. I'm telling you this story, it is our experience. And when we find out that there will be some kind of project behind us, like Brendan said, the 33-yard space from our fence is not a comfort, it's not a guarantee, it's not a safety to us residents over there. I don't know, I understand that the owner of the property wanted to sell. And my understanding is that we have to come to a point that we compromise that they will sell their land and we will live in our property and feel safe and secure and continue to have our well-being. Wouldn't think about the traffic, the dangerous. My sister and I already retired. We are pensioners. We don't have the means and strength to put the cameras on the back of our house, mark up all the fence, to monitor all the activities. We don't have the means to hire a lawyer to trace down those people. They mow down our backyard. And that's our concern. And that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. I just moved to the neighborhood Friday, and so I didn't get the email
We
or.
need your name and address.
Oh, excuse me. My name is Laban Evans, and I have to get back to you on my address because I'm just got here on Friday. So bear with me.
You do know how to get back to your house.
Yes, ma'am. I'm the fourth house right next to Brandon, so I'll have to text my wife for the address right after this. So I apologize. I just recently, actually, 5 months ago, had a baby boy with my family. And so safety is obviously a concern for me. And, you know, that my wife and I, when we first purchased the house, we thought, wow, it's going to be such a nice sidewalk to go down with our son when he's able to walk and ride. And then we thought, well, wow, you can actually see our trees in the back there. It's got a lot of privacy. And we were thinking, we're going to spend a lot of time in our backyard. And Brandon is our neighbor. So, and he already spends a lot of time in his backyard, has a nice pergola. And so I think what I'm kind of coming down to is I think the last thing I want to see looking out in my backyard is a building that's 33 feet away from my house and kind of jeopardizes my privacy of my home and potentially the safety of my family. So I would urge you to vote against this. And thank you. And I'll get you guys my address here in just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think now we're back to the council comments. Councilmember Hickman.
Yeah, I have a question, I think, for Sean. Based on the picture that's showing right now, is the yellow the area they're seeking to have vacated, or is that their land currently? Do you know?
Councilor, the yellow parcels are the two privately owned parcels of land. The one that is being requested for rezoning is the one on the left, the sort of the triangular shaped piece. And then just south of that would be a 33-foot additional space that's the right of way or half of the right of way for what used to be Rock Creek Road. So item 23 would vacate that 33 feet. If you did that, that 33 feet would fall to this yellow parcel owner, these two ladies here. And then they are requesting that yellow parcel plus the right of way for Rock Creek Road be rezoned to C1 for future development.
That's what I'm confused about. How did this private property end up between the road and the right of way, kind of left over like that? Because that's very unusual in my experience.
I appreciate that. You said it. It was left over. You know, this was we tried to take as little property as we could for the realignment of Rock Creek Road. I might back up a moment. I think most of the folks in here know this, but we realigned Rock Creek Road, the bridge over I-35 to the north to avoid acquiring all of these homes. Had we built the overpass and the road in that alignment, we would have had to buy all of these homes and the apartment complex that's right off the screen here. So the city and ODOT opted to realign Rock Creek Road and the bridge a distance to the north so as to not touch any private property. And we were successful in doing that. By doing that, we left these two weird, kind of unusual parcels of land. We also created, or the applicant really created, these other parcels north of there, which have now been platted. Not all of them have been built, but the Walmart was, I think, one of the first things to be developed in the apartment complex, and now the commercial professional office buildings there and so on. All of that has happened as a product of this agreement, and this is the last piece of that puzzle left to be addressed.
What are the possibilities? I know this is right at the Rock Creek Bridge, and across the bridge is the TIF area, I'll call it, the North Park area, that a light and turn lanes and other work may need to be done to this stretch of Rock Creek Road. I'm just concerned that we have right of way there. There's right now what appears to me to be kind of remnant land that's zoned A2. I mean, do we think we may need to eventually acquire it? And I don't know if there's been potential discussions of the city to acquire it now while it's zoned A2 and just have a larger right-of-way buffer there I mean, can you, I guess, answer that
No,
question? I got
sure.
one other follow-up one.
No, happy to. That's a good question. No, sir, I think we have acquired everything we need for the foreseeable future for any transportation utility improvements in the area. That's exactly the process we went through in 2009. And again, as always, our mission here is to take as little private property or to impact as little private property as possible. And that's really what got us to this point tonight, was these two last remnants. Frankly, we would love to stop mowing this area, to be honest with you. That's just an additional burden on city staff, and we'd like to give it back to the private property owners and let them manage it themselves. And that's what would happen once you have done, if you take this action tonight. We would still be left with that large parcel to the east that is still a really nice buffer. And I think the 33 feet that would not be vacated would be a significant buffer from these homes there on the screen. So again, this is all a product of that process. And I think, not to speak for the applicant, but I think they've developed everything else, and these are the last two parcels of land that they have left, and they're just trying to act on their original vision for development or not development in this area.
Okay, and the last question I have, Sean, is looking at the design or the layout of these parcels, I'm just kind of curious and concerned that the space between Rock Creek and whatever that Rock Creek Trail Road is, I guess, that runs parallel to Rock Creek, is the distance between Rock Creek Road and Rock Creek Trail sufficient if there's not going to be any turn-ins off of Rock Creek Road into this development here? Because, I mean, it's almost like I can see that Rock Creek Trail is going to become, left and, going, the cars going left and right, and it's, right, looks like, I mean, pretty close to the turnoff of Rock Creek Road. And I'm just, curious. I know I thought we had rules or, parameters on how quickly we'll have turnoffs, if you will, into developments. I know we had this conversation on that project down at Lindsay and Oklahoma, for example.
You bet.
And so I'm just trying to think 2 steps ahead and can this even be developed in a commercial way, even if we do this? Because I understand what the mayor and others have said, that we may or may not talk about this again, depending upon if it's rezoned, they can, develop by right. And so can you address that part?
Yeah, happy to. Those are, again, great questions. And you're right, those are concerns. I think that, again, falls to the next applicant. If all this happens tonight and this applicant sells the parcel to another developer, then that's the next challenge that they face, and that we as staff and council will face in looking at that site plan and determining the best point of access and how that, you're right, how that access relates to Rock Creek Trail and Rock Creek Road. It's tricky. There's no question that we would never design it this way if we could start with a blank sheet of paper, but we didn't have that option, and neither did these applicants. We did put that condition in the original 2009 agreement to avoid another access point on Rock Creek Road. We still stand by that position as a staff because we think that is much more dangerous to have another access point on a major arterial road at that location than it is to have a minor driveway onto Pendleton Drive here. I think the applicant has down zoned sort of by these covenants the kinds of uses that could be put here. And it's our impression as a staff that this is going to be a very low volume access area, low volume traveled use, C1 with very minor use potential there. And so again, that would come, if council approves these 2 items tonight, that would come sometime in the future when the developer laid out their site plan, their parking lot, and their access point onto Pendleton. The only other thing I might mention, Councilmember, is that in the original design, which is again pretty elaborate process there with Rock Creek Road realignment and the bridge over I-35, we did design the intersection of Pendleton and Rock Creek Road for a future traffic signal if ever needed. We hope that it won't be needed because that would have traffic signals spaced very closely between Pendleton and 36. But the intersection is designed for a future traffic signal if it is needed by the growth of traffic, by some of these safety concerns that the residents have expressed here tonight. But again, that would be dictated by the conditions we normally use to evaluate whether signalization is needed or not. But that could happen in the future if the conditions met those needs.
Do you happen to know what the uses are? I don't have my iPad.
I might have to look to Ms. Walker or Ms. Connors on that, Mayor. I know that there's been
Okay.
exclusions, but I don't know what's left.
Before we go on, I would like to establish what those uses are.
Good evening, Susan Connors, Planning Director. The Exhibit 1 that they included indicated that there could be an antiques shop, appliance store, automobile supply store, baby shop, bakery goods store, book or stationery store, camera shop, candy store, catering establishment, clothing or apparel store, dairy products or ice cream store, delicatessen, a dress shop, drugstore, dry cleaning, dry goods store, fabric or notion store, florist, furniture store, gift shop, grocery, hardware store, jewelry shop, key shop, leather goods, office building, office supply business, paint store, pet shop, pharmacy, radio, television, computer store, a restaurant, sewing machine sales, sporting goods sales, shoe store, and a toy store.
Okay, just about everything that it sounds like. All right.
What Catherine showed you previously, they did eliminate a number of
other things, but lots of things, but fairly small volume things.
Yes.
Low volume sales type shops. Okay. Councilmember Holman, you're next.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Scott.
Right. Yeah, so I kind of just wanted to make sure I'm clear and also reiterate that it's okay with me that, they sell their land, that we close the right of way. Number 23 is cool with me, item number 23. But I don't think it would be safe to rezone the area at this time into a commercial area. I think a community garden would be beautiful. But I don't know, it's not my land. So, but I do walk by that area frequently. That's all.
Okay. Councilmember Clark.
In terms of safety, and I understand cars are driving into their backyards, which direction are the cars coming from? Okay. Because it would seem like, okay. It would seem like having buildings there might stop that problem. Because, I mean, okay, just saying. Because that would, they couldn't get past the buildings is kind of my question. I'm just trying to envision where the vehicles are coming from and how they're getting into backyards. Yeah.
What are they doing? What are they doing?
Thank you.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah, I definitely understand the traffic problems, but it sounds like we already have those problems and we don't have anything there. So it sounds like there may be some other issues we could look at in terms of traffic, perhaps. Any other council comments? Councilmember Carter.
Well, this is my first voyage into making a zoning type decision. So I'm weighing, the two interests here. And it seems like the current owners have really reached out to the owners and tried to recognize and honor their complaints. The city's drawn up some covenants to protect them for certain purposes. I mean, I could see where if there was if it's agriculture, no one's going to plant wheat there, I don't think. So, I think they probably have the right to change it to something different. And, a cute little yogurt shop might enhance your value. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that are involved in this process to be done still, and to allow someone to have more options than agricultural use seems like a reasonable request to me.
I do believe that we did go back to them and offer that.
Okay.
They rejected the zoning that we.
Okay, sir, right now it's council comments. So
Just tell me when I can speak then.
Okay, well, we have done with the public comments right now. So. Other council comments? Councilmember Clark.
Another question, clarification, and from Councilmember Castleberry. We did have a contract, correct? I mean, could you clarify that a little bit more?
We'll get another shot at it here.
Yes, we did have that contract in 2009. The land use plan designates that as commercial now. It did acknowledge that they would come forward for a rezoning application and that the city council would consider it.
So what are the legal consequences if we go against that?
It would be handled like any other change of zoning. You would also have the contract component, but the contract, though, we did not obligate you to rezone the property because we can't do contract zoning. So it's really just a zoning matter. It's like your other matters that have been appealed more recently to district court.
Well, I mean, when I hear contract, I think of some sort of legal obligation. So would these people have relied on that even though we can't do contract zoning? That's what I'm concerned about.
Certainly with the land use plan amendment and the development around this property, that is probably something they did rely on in coming forward with this application. But the contract did not obligate council to rezone the property. It obligated you to consider their application.
And they agreed to that in 2009? Wouldn't we have considered their application either way?
Right. They would have. You would have, yeah. It just acknowledged that you would consider it, and that's just part of a number of things that were exchanged in that agreement.
Move forward with the land use plan intensity designation. It was single family residential, I believe, or residential, and then they upgraded it to more intense use as commercial.
So it would seem like we almost gave these property owners false hope.
No, no, they were well represented. It was not
okay.
a false hope type thing at all, but certainly, and then council approved it. I mean, it's a contract that went back to council and fully discussed. You know, you do have two items. You know, first item, of course, is the vacation. And that one, as a matter of contract, would be real difficult for us to defend if you turn that one down.
Okay.
This second item, as Catherine's mentioned, we don't do contract zoning.
Okay.
And so the contract was clear that it would have to come before council when they decided, when the property owners decided they're ready to come and rezone it and make their case. But again, council in 2009, knowing what type of development was going to go around that area, you know, the Walmart went in, the office went in, the multifamily went in. Council did go ahead and change the land use plan to a more intense use. So that would normally support a more intense use on the south side as well.
So we would be aligning the zoning with the land use plan.
Right.
And the land use plan is public knowledge and all of that. If residents wanted to look that up.
No, that's correct.
Okay. And again, if the land gets sold and they have to plat it and everything, and that goes through the full process, traffic studies, all that fun stuff.
Yes, we'd go through the normal process.
Okay,
certainly.
thank you.
Sorry to belabor this, Councilmember, but to your point about traffic studies, a traffic study is required when a new development generates more than 100 peak hour cars.
And it is not foreseen that this would.
I suspect not. I mean, again, hard to speak for what the developer might do, but I doubt that this parcel could generate that kind of traffic. So if it did not, we normally would not require a traffic impact analysis.
Let's say that they put in the baby store of all baby stores. People are coming from around the state to go to this baby store.
Sure.
And how would the residents address this issue?
Right. Well, certainly the platting process and the site plan that would come with it would be in a public hearing like this one here. And the applicant or the residents would certainly see that. They would see all of the submittals from the applicant, all the research done by staff like we normally do for you all, whether it be related to traffic or stormwater or The gentleman mentioned the overhead power lines. There'll be no relocation of any power lines. I can guarantee that tonight. That was set in stone with the bridge project. But all of those details would come forward in a conventional plating process, and the traffic would be discussed based upon the use. The only thing I can't stress enough here is that this parcel is so small and so odd shaped that the kind of development that will happen there will be governed by that space. So even if you had a baby store or whatever might be the baby clothing store or whatever might be the case, it would be a very small store because only that much can fit on this parcel. So the development and the impacts of development, if you approve this tonight, are going to be very minimal because there's only so much that can fit in this very small parcel of land. That's really why they're doing the vacation as well, because we don't think as a staff they could even develop this parcel, the yellow parcel on the screen, without the additional 33 feet of space. That's how small the existing parcel is.
Well, I suppose my concern lies in, it does become a very high trafficked area. For example, I have a street in one of my Hawthorne Place, and when that opened up, it had a lot more traffic. And we have a system in place where residents can request, come look at the count now. Is that an option if it does open up and it's way busier than we ever predicted? We got some creative entrepreneurs here that are making the use of this tiny space. Do the residents that's their yards back up to it? Well, do we have a system in place to address new traffic solutions?
Absolutely, certainly do. And I think the first order of business would be the development review process for any development that might come forward to council. But if that happened, and if for some reason traffic were impacted or the neighborhood was impacted, we do have our traffic calming program that's available to every neighborhood with a phone call. And of course, we have full-time traffic engineering staff here that are always looking at situations like this. That I heard some things tonight that we're going to be exploring tomorrow, that there were some accidents here. So we need to look at that, as we always do with our police department, and determine if something is happening here that maybe we can remedy with some additional traffic control devices or site clearance actions, or any number of things we try.
I appreciate that. Councilmember Holman and I were discussing that. Does it need better lighting or more signage? Because that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
I the 5-month-old son really got me. I've got my 4-year-old at home that loves being outside, and no resident should have to have fears of cars driving in their backyard, especially with that amount of space.
Appreciate that. No, that's the very kind of thing that we do, whether it's in front of you on a development case or whether it's just happening in a neighborhood. As you know, these things do happen from time to time, and we're always ready to look for solutions to avoid that from happening in the future.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Castleberry.
Well, at some point, I think I have some pertinent information that you need to hear before you vote.
Okay. About the property?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're calling me?
You were the legal representation at one point for the sisters. Is that?
I'll defer my time to.
I told
you answered my
sisters
questions
because of what I said in the miscellaneous section last week, that I was withdrawing effective last week and I wouldn't be here.
Would you identify yourself?
And I did not intend to be here. I helped prepare the script that they gave, but there's been enough information, and frankly, I have also prepared 5 minutes worth of remarks for the miscellaneous section to say that if this was turned down, to come up here and tell you why you had a very short window to change your vote, because it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I don't need to go through that, but at this point, I do need to correct some things that have not been correctly said. Let's look at that whale-shaped piece up there, that yellow one. The people already own the south 33 feet. Now, the statement has been made, once it's closed and vacated, it reverts to the people. These people acquired their land by sections and clear down to the section line. They have owned from the corner of 36th over to the thing at the middle of the section line road. Now, so that 33 feet actually belongs on this piece of property. you've got stuff in your packet that shows the site like this. It says subject tract, and what it's got is a yellow shirt. I'm sorry, but it's got a dark line down here, which is their 33 feet. They own it. They don't have to, and so they're entitled to do whatever. They're not depending on the city vacating it. So they own all the way down. Now, where that's going to come, if you look on that, the dotted line to the right, going back to the east of Pendleton to the service road, is the section line itself. So carry that across, and you see that you've got a 33-foot section below the yellow-shaped whale, which is part of the property. It doesn't go back to the point. It only goes 442 feet. But that 33 by 442 is a part of the ownership. And that's described in the rezoning application, very specifically, is in there. I've got, as I say, I prepared 5 minutes in miscellaneous to tell you why it was going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you didn't approve this modified C1 tonight. In order to do it, I think it would be better if if you allowed me to address some of the comments by the protesters and give you an idea of what actually happened. You've got the minutes of the Planning Commission in your packet. If you'll read them, you will see that there were a lot of discussions that were about all these same topics. When the traffic business came up, we said to them, we didn't play any part in this, and we will help you. We agree you got a big problem. We'll help you get a traffic light. We'll do whatever we can to solve your problem. Now, the flip side of that coin is, if this gets turned down and that we never get to develop that, the traffic problem is already there. This isn't going to exacerbate the traffic problem one whit. If you've already got a bad traffic problem, which I believe these people when they say it's bad, no question about that, then let's all get together and work upon traffic control devices. There's already an authority for a traffic light at that intersection, and there should be now, so that people, if you read those minutes, so that people should be able to access and get across those two streets. But the traffic thing was there. And also, please remember this, that if you look at that drawing up there, that the properties to the west of Pendleton, up there in the subdivision north of it, before 2009, both lanes of the original Rock Creek Road were right behind their fences. The city tore up 722 feet of paving from the yellow length of the whale up there. But until that time, you talk about property and noise and that sort of thing. They got rid of that in 2009. They haven't had that since that time. This development, whatever it will be, poses not nearly the problem, the noise, and everything else that the traffic did from the original Rock Creek Road. The devaluation of property, the addition on there. Now, you know, you can get a real estate agent to say anything. And I can bring in one that just told me what a C1 value would be on per square foot up there. And I can tell you, it's their property's not going to get devalued up there because we deliberately took out all of the types of businesses they complained about having. We took out liquor stores, we took out bars, we took out places that had loudspeakers, and took away anything like McDonald's or Wendy's that had that kind of a drive-in where you had a remote speaker and call the people. We took all that out. We made every change we possibly could to accommodate the specific complaints that were raised. Now, the only two that I can't point to factually, and neither can they, is devaluation and traffic. Because, you know, their position, and this has been true in every residential that's ever come up against a commercial in the nearby neighborhood, it's going to devalue my property values. Well, that won't devalue their property values. And the other action that goes along with respect to that is that from the travel standpoint, it's not going to increase the traffic anymore. But you go back to all of the rest of the types of uses that they were objecting to, we got rid of those with that thing that we had. So they have made every conscientious effort in order to try to respect and protect these people, and at the same time be allowed to do what could be done with their property. Now, they talk about you can't vote, you can't zone by contract. Well, that was true, and that's always been true. You can't be forced, none of you can be forced to vote for this thing. But nobody said at the Planning Commission, and it still hasn't really been firmly said up here, this contract is a legally enforceable document. And the reason I was prepared, and I still am, if you turn it down, to come back during miscellaneous and try to tell you how we better get that reversed before you adjourn tonight, because it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if that doesn't happen. The area that I'm really particularly addressing is in you got the contract in your packets. This is in section 10. And they talked about what must happen. The development plan must be for a single-story commercial retail store with parking being allowed west of Pendleton. Well, friends, you don't get that kind of development in CO or any of the residential areas. If you don't have at least C1, you don't get that. So if you think that that's not completely and clearly contemplated in a legally enforceable document, then you're mistaken what's going to happen if this is turned down and the people go file a breach of contract lawsuit, which I'll get into later on if we have to. But I want to try to, in all sincerity and honesty, address the concerns that have been there. The business on Rock Creek Road, in the minutes of the Planning Commission, it talks about the fact that the traffic director turned us down, had no doubt that we'd have no access from Rock Creek. I knew that was coming. This is the same traffic director that said Walmart was only going to get one outlet onto Rock Creek Road up there at the corner. And I said, well, you just killed Walmart on the west side. Oh, no. Oh, I said, oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, Walmart just won't take just one outlet on there, and there's standard procedure. So, you know, if you and I want to go to the city manager and talk about this, fine. But I'm telling you, you get it in there or we lose Walmart. Well, I can understand his desire to control the access and to limit the access. But when you've got that many people that have now been crowded into that area, you've got the ability and the right and the obligation to put in traffic lights, traffic signs, all sorts of controls that can ensure the safety of the people. And it's not the responsibility of somebody that owns that little tiny piece of property there to cure all of these problems that will still be there if this application is turned down completely. So we want to help. We'll do anything that we can to make this, and we don't know what's going to be there. That's why you've got a list there that could be any one of anything, any more than we knew what was going to be on North Base when it was rezoned. You know, I walked in and told the planning director, don't know what's coming. There's not going to be any lot lines, not going to be any block lines. And he says, you're expletive nuts. But
okay. Yeah. I think we need to finish.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll depending on the vote, I'll wait and come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Castleberry, we were to you.
My only question was on the land use, and Councilman Clark asked that question and answered mine.
Okay,
I'm good.
Councilmember Wilson then.
Just point of order, because we shut down the residents and allowed the lawyer to come back in and talk. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't allow the resident to have his moment as well. That's up to you though, Madam Mayor. That's all I had.
Thank you. The last resident, would you like to come back up?
I guess a lot of what I've heard, is just a lot of we thinks on this whole thing. We think that there's not going to be much more traffic. We think that there's not going to be this. There's no guarantees. Even I think Mr. Heupel said that, we don't know a lot of things on this. So, and like we said, my position is, we don't necessarily, we think they have the right to sell this property, right? To develop this property, to make money off this. But once again, we went back to Mr. Heupel with the CO potential rezoning, saying that we would agree to that, and they rejected that. So that's our only concern is, just like he said, we don't know what's going to go in there, right? There's a list of those things, and those are very open-ended. They're not exact. I mean, a grocery store, I mean, obviously there's probably not enough room for a grocery store there, but there's a lot on that list. And if we rezone it to a C0 or less, then that does, limit what goes on there to what's similar to what's across the street there, as far as commercial office building. So that's my, thank you for allowing me to come back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Final council comments. I think we were done. All right. I'm going to make a really brief comment. I am concerned about the neighbors and the traffic. This is such a small place. I can't imagine it creating a huge amount of traffic. There's just not room for a big enough store there. And there are many other steps to this process. I think we do need to look at this intersection in terms of traffic. It sounds like there were some real problems with it. I actually agree it is not the problem of these property owners, and they have been waiting since 2009. And so I think it's time to go ahead and take care of this issue. So we have a motion on the floor to adopt the ordinance on a final reading. No. Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading by show of hands. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion on the floor is to, we're still on 23. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on a final reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members,
All votes have been to adopt the ordinance upon final reading for the right-of-way closure. Passes unanimously.
item, most of our conversation has been about this item, which is the rezoning. So are there any final, I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Are there any further council comments? Final public comments. Council? Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading by show of hands. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. A 6-2. The motion passes 6-2. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes by a vote of 5-3. Voting against, Councilmember Scott, Councilmember Holman, and Councilmember Hickman.
Been withdrawn. Item 26 is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances to allow for the sale of alcoholic beverages in compliance with state law in theaters, changing liquor store or packaged liquor store to retail spirit store, deleting short order food restaurant, amending the percentage of sales required to qualify as a restaurant, deleting the definition of restaurant, short order food. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
At this time,
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Susan Connors, the planning director. This item before you is a fairly simple zoning ordinance amendment to allow alcoholic beverages in theaters in accordance with the new state law that'll go into effect in October. So this list here is the list of zoning districts that will be amended to allow theaters and alcoholic beverages to be included. In addition to that, there is also, the state has changed the packaged liquor stores to retail spirit stores. So we have amended our language in several locations to take out the old language and put in retail spirit store to be, again, in compliance with the state language. Also, the state has reduced the definition of restaurant, food sales from 50% to 35%. So we have included that, taken out Low Point beer, and then also removed short order food restaurant from the C1 zoning district and from the definition, since it really is an outdated term. And that is the total, what this ordinance's change is about. That's correct.
any questions?
Susan, explain to me the change in the definition of restaurant of 50% to 35%. Would that be retroactive? For example, if before we required, I assume that's a percentage of sales or business. What's that a percentage of? Let me start there.
It's the percentage of food sales required to be considered a restaurant. So going from requirement of 50% of their sales to be food sales to 35% of their sales to be food sales to be considered a restaurant, which gives them a different liquor license, I believe, than a bar or lounge.
I might add just a little bit to that, Councilmember Hickman. Prior to, under the current rules, Low Point beer gets counted as food by the state. So recognizing that Low Point beer goes away, the percentage of food kind of reverts to 35% because now it will be considered liquor.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. It's like a watermelon's a vegetable.
Other council comments from the public? Final comments from the motion on the floor to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have been cast and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously.
Hire pedicabs. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Adopt.
Second.
At this time, I'd like to recognize Beth Muckala, Assistant City Attorney, to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm here to present on 01819-4. The discussions regarding this ordinance originated in the Community Planning and Transportation Committee, and the discussion arose from concerns regarding safety of pedicabs that were operated within the municipal limits of the city of Norman. Previously, pedicabs have been treated generally as taxi cabs under our ordinances, but the ordinances were not specific. And when concerns regarding safety were raised, attention was paid to inspections and background checks on drivers. And so the city staff was asked to look at those parts of the ordinances and come forward with a draft ordinance that adopted certain regulations regarding those items. And one item to note is that, there was a concern not to overregulate because pedicab use was infrequent in Norman. Primarily, the noted use was on game day. And so the various things that were discussed with CP&T or again, the inspections of the pedicabs themselves, background checks on drivers, identification decals for the pedicabs themselves so that you could tell if it had been inspected and was in compliance, passing very clear requirements regarding insurance that were in line with other municipalities locally. There was an interest in not, again, over-regulating, and so where a pedicab had been inspected or a driver already permitted and background checked in another municipality in Oklahoma, it was recommended to staff that we consider language allowing acceptance of those inspections and background checks. And so that language is in the current draft ordinance. And so what we have brought to you, it defines non-motorized vehicles for hire because currently Chapter 13 was referring just generally, and taxi cab, limousines, those are motorized vehicles for hire. So that distinction has been made and pedicabs defined within it. We have established fees based on the CP&T recommendations regarding a licensure fee per entity or operator of $30 annually, plus $15 per pedicab, and that is to cover essentially what we anticipate the decal cost is to actually order and place those decals so that it can be clear that they've been inspected. The idea is for inspection to be taken care of the same as with taxi cabs, so by the fleet division. And we've modeled the standards based on neighboring municipalities, again, so that it will be compatible in a situation where we want to accept the inspections. And again, we've addressed insurance similarly with other surrounding municipalities. So I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
All right, questions from council members. Councilmember Holman.
It's the part about non-motorized vehicle. So I've heard from at least one pedicab driver that some of them do have small motors on them to, I mean, they're carrying heavy loads sometimes, going uphill sometimes, that type of thing. Does this ban someone from having a motorized or motor on their pedicab completely?
I would have to refer to the definition of motorized, but I don't think it bans them outright. What it would do, it might change their distinction under the ordinances. They would not necessarily qualify as non-motorized if they are using partial motors. So let me refer to it so that I'm not correct. Non-motorized vehicle under this draft refers to any vehicle which is propelled or drawn upon city streets solely by animal or human power and includes but is not limited to pedicabs. So what you would have there could be a different distinction for that type of pedicab were it brought to the city's attention.
So what would that mean for that person? Would they still be able to operate in the city of Norman? Would it cost them more money to do that? Or
there is not a ban written into that, so they would be able to apply for a license. Now, their inspection is going to be specific to the motorized component, and so safety will be based on those considerations as well. So the process will not be identical, but no, within the ordinances drafted, there's not a ban on those vehicles per se.
So they could still have them. The process may be different. So would the process cost them more? Would the permit cost them more possibly, or because they have a motor?
I'd be happy to answer that, Councilmember Holman. If we license them under the motorized section of our public transportation ordinance, they would liken them to a taxi cab, motor bus, or something like that. The licensing requirements for that are pretty much the same, with the exception of the cost is $25 a unit, a vehicle.
Okay.
There's no base fee for the company. It's just $25 a unit.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Hickman.
I guess wanted to clarify, this came through the CPTC that I was the chair of, and we held several meetings on this topic. And during those committee meetings, we had several pedicab companies that attended and participated in the discussions. And the outcome of that discussion, and this is really more a question, I think, for Brenda, is that the ordinance that's before us tonight is modeled off of Oklahoma City, but is, I guess you could say, less stringent even than what they do, and it's focused on public safety. Is that a fair summary?
That would be correct, Councilmember Hickman. The focus of the committee was public safety, both for the riders and the companies themselves. We did model after Oklahoma City's, but we didn't include all of theirs. We were trying not to make it overly burdensome for these companies to operate in Norman, but just that they operate in a safe manner for both themselves and the riders. I mean, the insurance requirement is beneficial to both the company and the riders.
And just, I guess, to be clear, this issue came forward because primarily game days and at Campus Corner, safety issues as far as pedicabs being used, games at night, things of that sort. And I had several complaints that I heard from people, and I don't know if Councilmember Holman did, 'cause that goes obviously into his ward as well, with people expressing concerns because these were, it was completely unregulated at the current time. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that for everybody.
Councilmember Wilson.
Something, I'm sorry I didn't ask this question in the CPTC meeting, but just something you said kind of stuck with me just now is, so these could be drawn by animals, like they could be a horse drawn? I mean, in our ordinance.
Yes,
according to our ordinance.
My apologies.
Not that it would be, but I could see a loophole here. Do we have any other ordinances that cover the horse-drawn situation? I mean, do we have? I'm sorry to be off topic, but.
We do not have specific licensure provisions such as these that are specific to horse-drawn carriages. You're correct that non-motorized vehicle, that definition could be used to include that. And the way it is written, a non-motorized vehicle would include animal-drawn carriage. An animal-drawn carriage would not be the same as a pedicab, but an animal-drawn carriage would be a non-motorized vehicle under the ordinance. And at the time that CP&T addressed this, you're right, it was not addressed that these regulations extend to horse-drawn carriages. And so city staff brought forth an ordinance based on the specific items that were discussed with respect to the background checks and the inspections specific to pedicabs, because those were the concerns.
Well, I'm just curious, because people do crazy things, that if somebody came to the city of Norman and said, I have a pedicab, but I'm tired of hauling it myself, so I'm going to attach my Great Dane to it, or my llama, or whatever. And I know it's silly, but seriously, people do these things. And so what do we have in our ordinance book as the animal person to regulate that? Stop laughing at me.
And I'm looking again at the definition of pedicab. A pedicab does refer to a person.
But it says non-person. Didn't it say person or non-person?
I'm sorry, I was talking about the definition for pedicab.
Definition. Okay.
Because it does say by the physical effort of one person.
Okay, so that would probably eliminate
so
weird uses. I know I'm thinking way outside the box here, but.
No, not at all. Oklahoma City's ordinance is specific to horse-drawn carriages as well, because I understand that they probably have a larger operation of that with Bricktown and all those items. Absolutely. That was not an item that was brought to CP&T's attention at the time. And I'm unaware of the amount of licensure that we might be approached about regarding horse-drawn carriages. So it seems that CP&T did not address that as the time as a concern. And so this ordinance was meant to apply to pedicab licensure in particular and address those concerns. Though future amendments addressing horse-drawn carriages would be compatible and could definitely be considered in compatibility with what we already have here. This framework works for it.
Okay. So like it or not, we could, horse-drawn carriage could fit in here right now if somebody came in and asked for a horse-drawn carriage.
They would be subject
good,
to
bad, or different. Okay.
They could be subject to inspections. Yes, I do not believe that they would be subject to the specific pedicab licensure fees. But as far as inspections, they would fall under the non-motorized vehicle definition.
Then, may I ask, Ms. Hall, if if we've had those occasions. I mean, I know people have used them for weddings and they've used them during festivals
Santa Claus.
where they have horse-drawn carriages. So what do we do when people want to do that?
Our ordinances regarding public transportation are related to providing it for a fee. So if they're doing it like in a wedding situation, I know the mall does it sometimes at Christmas, and they don't charge the riders. It's a courtesy just to, get them to the door of the mall. We have never regulated any of those that are not receiving money for the service. We have had in years past some companies, some horse-drawn carriage companies, I believe, that work in Bricktown come to Norman and work. And although we didn't have an ordinance in play, they were working for money, for profit. So we had them go ahead and get a public transportation license under our current taxi cab motor bus license, although they didn't have to get inspections for whether they had headlights and all that kind of thing.
Well, that was
Did you check for the Great Dane or the llama? Make sure that
Haven't had a request for those.
And I would follow up on that. Within the definitions that were added in section 13-2004, for hire is defined in order to separate someone who's operating a carriage. Yeah, llamas. Someone who's operating a carriage personally versus for hire. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry to derail us.
Okay. Now, are any more council comments? All right. This is an opportunity for the public to comment. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Heidi Upton, and I am a pedicab driver. I have a company in Oklahoma City. Am I supposed to give you my address?
We need your name and address.
Okay, it's 8400 Tiffany Drive, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73132.
Thank you.
I have been pedicabbing for 3 years. I started right before football season, so this will be my 4th season to pedicab. The first 2 years, I rented a bike from a company in Oklahoma. And then I went out on my own, and now I own my own vehicle, and I own a trailer, and I travel around to events and all kinds of places, festivals all over the U.S. My main concern with this, I'm going to go to that motorized thing. Pedicabs can have an assist on them. There's several types of assist. They're electric assist. So we have batteries that we charge and then we plug in and all of that. And it's to assist us. I've worked festivals where I've worked 18 hours a day, pulling 2 to 6 people at a time in my pedicab on gravel and grass. It is very hard on my body. I'm almost 40 years old, and it allows me to be able to work more and help me get through the day. I also have to eat less food when I have an assist on there because I'm not having to feed the energy to my body to keep going. I will go ahead and let you know that in the last 3 seasons that I have worked, there have been assists on at least 5 or so pedicabs down here. I don't believe that anybody's even noticed it. We have not been regulated and permitted down here. As far as I know, there has not been any problems or complaints with us. I do agree you can put permits on us and make sure that you're protecting the city of Norman, and that is completely fine. What I don't agree with and want to make sure that doesn't happen here today is that you have to have an Oklahoma driver's license. I put a lot of sacrifice and time into going. Do you have to have
I
That's
did
okay.
not understand you had to have a license. I don't.
That is included in the ordinance that you saw, but that portion covers taxi cabs,
Okay.
motor buses and limousines, not pedicabs.
Okay, so as long as you have the good insurance, you have your proof of insurance, you can have a Texas license and you can get a permit here.
And you have to have your background checked too.
Yeah, that was my main concern. And if you guys have any questions about the motors or anything like that, the electric assist motors, if you have any questions about that, I mean, I am more than willing to help you. I have also permitted in Austin. I've been permitted in Houston. Seattle is a city that does not have permits. I can pull my bike off my trailer and work as I please. I've worked at Tulsa. I have a permit. I'm permitted in Tulsa as well. So I've been through all of those permitting and had the people look over my bike. There are some bikes that, yes, I would be a little bit more concerned about. The companies usually, one of the reasons why I bought my own bike is I was having to rely on somebody else to keep it working and running for me. The travelers that go around have their own insurance on their bikes. They keep it up because it's up to them, and they have more invested in it and want to make sure that their stuff is correct. And they don't want to have an insurance claim because we're paying it. We care about our bikes. When you have companies out there that rent out bikes, they're putting ads on Craigslist and getting whoever they can, as long as they're paying that rent to rent that bike that day. So I would be very happy with having the independent people here. We have not had a problem with a whole lot of travelers coming in. There was a lot of things said in the minutes from the last meeting by Josh Martin that were not true. We've had a couple companies come in. I know of at least 3 people last year, and those people are very respectful. They work all these festivals that I work. There's 400,000 people at these festivals we work. So we are actually even more, we are more experienced than the people that are doing it part-time here. So the people that were coming in, and he was saying people are coming in, they're just more worried. The companies here are more worried about people coming into what they think is their market. There is a pedicab industry, and we should be allowed to work, which you guys have it with the Oklahoma City, but they're just more worried about people coming in and taking their spots. So that was, I think, the main concern. I have no problems with the permits. I will be here Tuesday. If you guys pass this, you guys can look over my bike. I have the top of the line bike. It is the only bike like that here in Oklahoma. I call it the Ferrari of the pedicabs. I will be more than willing to work with the Oklahoma City Police, who all of them knew who I am because I dress as Wonder Woman. So if you've been to the game, I am Wonder Woman driving the pedicab. I am more than happy to bring that with you. Talk with some of the owners in Austin and make sure that you guys know what to look for, making sure the brakes are stopping at the speed that they should be stopping at, and just any questions that you guys need to make sure that the pedicabs are safe here.
Thank you, Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Holman?
I just want some more further clarification on an assist compared to a motorized vehicle. So if she's using an assist on her bike, would she have to have an Oklahoma driver's license to operate in Norman?
No, it's just the license.
I just want to make sure that by having an assist on their bike, we're not banning them from working in Norman if they don't have an Oklahoma driver's license.
I can point you to the provision, Councilmember Holman. Section 13-2002 says that no person shall drive a taxi cab, motor bus, or limousine without having a valid Class A, B, or C commercial license or Class D license issued by the state of Oklahoma. I believe that's probably the provision that Ms. Upton is referring to. That is specific to applying to taxi cab, motor bus, and limousine. Now, a pedicab with an assist would qualify under the definition of a motorized vehicle for hire. However, taxi cab, motor bus, and limousines are types of motorized vehicles for hire. And this provision applies to those specific 3 types, not to the general category of motorized vehicles for hire. Does that make sense?
Yes, so she will be able to operate with an assist by not. Clear. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I went to Councilmember Holman. Were there any other comments from the audience? Okay, all right. Any other council comments? Thank you. You did really good work on that. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading by a show of hands. All those in favor, raise your right hands. Opposed, same sign. That was unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your vote.
All votes have motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously.
This brings us to item 28, miscellaneous discussion. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council. Remarks should be directed to the council as a whole and limited to 5 minutes or less. Do we have comments from the audience?
Bob Husky, 3615 Chatham Court. Yeah, thank you, Ward 3. I wanted to make sure that to follow up on what one council member said, and making sure that you understood that, yes, there are things like dog sleds and a Sooner schooner. I don't know if Sooner schooner gets out on beyond the actual stadium, although I think I've seen it out there. So I think we need to be looking at OU and the Sooner schooner.
Oh, please, don't even say that out loud. Mr. Dunn.
Solutions 1400 Garfield Avenue. Where do I start? I suppose let me first say that I'm glad the UNP issue is being reworked. I think we can do something far more creative and synergistic and connectively enhancatory. I also want to say something about people's sensibilities. I think there's a lot of talent around us that doesn't really get its due, in part because people are too humble sometimes. You know, people have all these gifts and these skills and these ideas, but whether it's because they want to get along or whether it's because they don't see their talents themselves, they don't advertise and market those skills. And Sarah Ann Kaplan is a person who personifies that. Here, you all have a sustainability director, you have a visionary city planner, you have a small business, collaborative community creator. And I don't know if you all know her history, but 10 years ago, whenever I was working for Syscor on Main Street, we worked right next door to her native roots. And when you think about how you connect and create a local economy of food producers and peanut makers and bread makers and local fruits and vegetable sellers, having a way to bring their products to market and to trade them with other members of the urban community who are tuned into that, you have an enlightened individual who sees a lot of the trends that I and many other people see, but was so convinced that she bought into it. And I don't know if you can put a dollar value on that kind of commitment, but she is one of those hidden gems. And whenever I was discussing this with her, she said, are you trying to give me more work? And I suppose I am. I think she can be doing a lot of other things, but she's just so humble. She just isn't going to force that upon anybody. And I want to stand up for her. You know, I want to be a little overly too brash for people who are a little overly too humble. I went to the transfer station today. I've been helping a local friend of mine who's, and Brenda, if you tell me when I'm 30 seconds away or a minute or something, I want to save some time so we can actually have a discussion. You know, it's not miscellaneous statements, right? Or miscellaneous open mic night, miscellaneous discussion. Right?
We'll have to schedule that.
Yeah.
Open mic night.
Yeah, we'll have to do something like that. Going to the transfer station is very similar, I think, to going to the water treatment plant or going anywhere in the city that is, it's the gritty grime that people take for granted. And it kind of it prompted me to think about the importance of almost a compulsory. You move to Norman, you buy a home in Norman. All right, welcome to Norman. Your tour of the transfer station and the water treatment plant and the sewage treatment plant is scheduled for next week after you have your closing on your house. Something, because people need to be awakened to the reality that there are certain people in our community who make sacrifices, who live in, I shouldn't say live, they work and they spend 1/3 of their lives in some of the uncleanest, most unhealthy environments that human beings can create. And we owe them a lot. I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate everybody who's on television watching this, because this is our way, I think, of paying them back a little bit, but I don't think we'll ever be able to really do it enough. But that's how it is. Thank you all for listening. As we move forward in the UNP thing, I hope no one holds any grudges against me for the vitriol and the brashness of some of my positions. I'm here to help in whatever way I can. And I'm Team Norman. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Council members. Okay, now do you want me to start with you or not? Huh? Are you ready this time? Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Scott.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so fun night, eventful. These things never go quite as I planned for, so I guess I'll get used to that. And couple comments on the withdrawal of the UMP proposal. I want to say I don't like this idiom, I don't like this metaphor, but there are different ways to skin a cat. And I don't like that metaphor because I'm vegetarian and proud. So I don't know how else to say it though, and I understand why some people wanted it to go to a final vote and we wanted it documented, but I didn't mind having it withdrawn because there was an objection. The objection was withdrawn. There was another objection. I was confused, and I think other people were confused. And I think that we've been confused about all of these shenanigans, and I've just been ready to get to work. So that's why I voted to make sure it was withdrawn and not the first thing I have to think about every day when I wake up anymore. So the next thing is I want to thank all my constituents. I want to thank everybody on TV for watching, including my mom. I meant to say hi, Mom. So my mom was watching from Tulsa tonight, and so I wanted to say hi. I was going to do that. And so I want to thank all my constituents who came out and my neighbors who came out tonight and sat here for a while and, got up and spoke and had their voices heard. I heard them. I suffer with them as well on Pendleton every single day. So I know that area like the back of my hand, and I really do appreciate them coming out. And I hope everybody knows that they can reach out to me anytime. I am pretty good at responding to my emails and text messages, and I will be hosting the first Ward 8 forum or Ward 8 meeting at Roosevelt Elementary from 1 to 4 or however long it goes on Sunday. You don't have to live in my ward to go, but I'll give you a little more talk time if you do. So that's all I've got.
Member Holman.
Yeah, I just want to comment about on Friday that we opened the new East Side Library branch, and which is located in Ward 6. But it's a big deal for all of us, not only that represent areas of East Norman, but some of us like me that grew up in East Norman. And I went to Irving Middle School and Kennedy Elementary School, and I know a lot of the children that live in that area of town are really going to benefit from this library location. And so Friday and cutting the ribbon for a building like that is one of the primary reasons that I sit up here on this council. One of the reasons I wanted to be on the council was so that I could be a part of doing things like that for my community, to say, I could go back to Irving Middle School or Kennedy Elementary someday and tell the students there that you can grow up just like me and you can have your name on that building in Norman too. And so it was really exciting for me to be a part of that, to be on council when we put Norman Forward together, and to finally start seeing these projects being completed. And we have so many more projects that we've got to complete, and we're going to. And so there's a whole lot more excitement about that, and I'm ready to get there. The second thing I want to talk about too is for Ward 7 residents in the Eagle Cliff, Cobblestone Creek, Cedar Lane area, the 12th Avenue Southeast widening project is getting close to completion. I know it's been very frustrating the way that they've had to switch the sides of the roads when they built it. There's been confusion about it. There's been lots of traffic congestion. I've gotten text messages with pictures and all kinds of stuff from residents that have been frustrated about it. But as I mentioned before, this project is the very last major road construction project in this entire area. And so once it's done, that'll be it. And residents in this area won't have to deal with any more road construction in the foreseeable future until ODOT widens Highway 9 to 6 lanes someday. So, and that's not anytime coming up. So that project should be done maybe the end of August or sometime in September perhaps. And then we'll have a brand new nice road with new bike lanes on it, and which will help get even better connectivity from south of Highway 9 to the OU main campus. So a lot of exciting stuff. I want to thank everybody that came to the council meeting tonight and sat with us and observed us do the business of the city. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Clark.
I want to thank all of you that came to the opening of the East Branch Library. I hope you enjoyed your visit to Ward 6. That's right. And I want to thank city staff for the opportunity for my little boy to be the first person to check a book out from the library. That is such a special memory for me and for my entire family. If you haven't visited the East Branch Library yet, tomorrow is an excellent opportunity when we have our stormwater open house at 3:30. I will be there, so come on down. It is a beautiful building. I did have, is Max still here? No. I did have a residence ask for, and I know we covered this extensively in the design period, but why it was selected, you know, the colors and the iron, and because it really is neat how they matched it to that part of town as well as the public art. So that would be, I know, something the residents who weren't there at the beginning but now can see the end product might enjoy. I also wanted to speak about the UNP project. I had made it clear that I did support it because I was looking forward to a way to diversify our sales tax base with maybe experiential sales tax dollars and add a cool urban housing project that would kind of fill that missing piece of housing that I feel like we have in Norman. I wasn't thrilled about a giant arena, and there were lots of strong feelings about that on both sides of the issue. I really, really wanted that additional economic analysis, and we didn't get it, and I'm very disappointed with that. And because we didn't get it, if it had gone to a vote tonight, I would have voted no, because my job is to represent my ward. I remember getting asked when I was one of those forums on the dais, what would you do if there was an issue your residents and you disagreed on? I said it would be my job to educate them on why I felt the way I did, and without that extra analysis, I was unable to do that. So I appreciate the foundation, and I think Mr. Rieger represented tonight saying they read the room and it was time to rework it. I like that he has indicated he's willing to listen to you because it is our town. And Evan, I liked your comments about it's got a lot of potential and we can do better. And so I'm excited to see what happens with that. With that said, I would point out that TIFs aren't the devil. It may not have been the great solution here, but we've used TIFs to benefit our community. And we live in a state where the state government has totally hamstrung our municipalities on how we keep a healthy general fund. I love that when we have pipes break in Ward 6, we have crews there immediately who do not leave until the break is fixed and my residents have water pressure. I love that when a resident has a stormwater issue, Carrie Evenson is there checking it out right away. I love that I can message Steve Lewis when I see a traffic light that's gotten skewed and it's ready immediately. I am very proud of the services that our city staff provides to our residents. We have 30 vacancies right now. 30. We have got to come up with a plan. Tonight, we previewed an economic development strategic plan that the mayor and I have had the opportunity to work on for the past 18 months. And I hope you are as impressed with Mr. Tarleton and Market Street as I have been. They have a vision, not that will get us through for the next few years. We need to come up with something that will get us through the next few decades. Now, this was a packed room earlier, and it's because you care. I get it. We all care. One of the things I love the most about this town is how passionate its citizens are. So what I'm asking you to do is to hit that reset button, stay engaged, and let's find solutions for an economic development long-term plan that will benefit our community and our residents. So we can have top-notch schools, so we can have great roads, we can build the connectivity we so need, and we've got to work together on this. So stay engaged, help us find solutions. I know that with this plan, there will be opportunities for community engagement, and I've seen the engagement that is possible. So don't let me down moving forward, because we are all in this together. It doesn't have to be a scary time for Norman. It's going to be an exciting time. You know, he mentioned the weather and radar. We helped with that cave thing. Did you see we got some shout out to Norman on that? This is an exciting time, and I hope you will stay positive in helping us fully fund our community, because we are the best city in Oklahoma. I firmly believe that. So please join us in making a plan for Team Norman.
Councilmember Wilson.
I too was very excited about the Market Street study. To me, it said different things than what we were hearing in the arena conversation, which was to inject money into our current districts and to invest in our people. I think that means I love the idea of internships. I like incubators. I like small business grants. I like those kinds of deals that inject money. And Ty, I thought that was a very good point that was made, that we get these people, these young people while they're here studying and while they're young, and we capitalize on their talents, and this sounds really bad when I say it out loud, but we tether them, sounds a little like slavery, but sorry. But anyways, I think that finding our unique thing, and I think weather happens to be it. We really have a good industry that employs people at a nice, livable existence, wage-wise and benefits and long-term, fulfillment. And I think that if we capitalize on that, we will get much farther than what was presented before. Although I do appreciate the foundation withdrawing that and looking towards working with us. I think OU is a great partner that we need to embrace. That that I've said all along that we should. We have students, we have technology, we have talent. We just need to learn how to get them here and keep them here. I don't have any events coming up that I know of, so I'll just leave it at that, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Hickman.
Good evening. Thanks everybody who came out earlier, and the folks that are still here or watching on TV at home. I did just want to make a couple of comments about the economic development presentation. I was also happy to hear that work is in progress. It is an issue that we as a community do need to discuss and do need to have a strategic plan. I mean, my notes from that presentation, really I categorized down into four main topics. One is our existing businesses. As a lawyer, I can tell you that yes, you can generate more revenue from your existing clients than getting new clients. Getting new businesses to move here are harder than supporting your existing businesses and encouraging them to grow and to hire more quality jobs and to have more quality jobs. I fully support that. It's logical. We need to get to work on it. Number two, talent retention. You heard me make my comment about internships. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We just got to look up this highway. My daughter is a part of the 350 group, Greater Grads program in Oklahoma City through a nonprofit foundation working at the Oklahoma City Memorial Museum. There are programs out there, things like that, that'll help recruit and retain talented students, whether they go away to college out of state like my daughter or at the University of Oklahoma. We have a lot of very talented students that go through Norman Public Schools who have, guess what, connections back to Norman through family. We should try to get those kids to come back that might go out of state. Like I believe Jonathan Fowler, for example, one of my Ward 4 residents, is an example that went out of state for college and came back and lives here now and is running an excellent business. There are things that we need to do. We just got to sit down and all put our heads together and then sharpen our pencils and get to work on it. And I believe also engaging those students and young people in the community does help to get them more bought in and staying local. All the research I've seen about millennials and younger professionals is they want to be a part of making something happen. Number 3, cluster, weather and radar. I totally agree. I'll never forget May 2016, right before I was sworn in, one of the first conversations I had with the city manager was about our relationship with the university, and communication with the university and partnerships is something that we still have a lot of work to do to build that connection and build upon opportunities to create these nodes of excellence in things like weather and weather technology. We aren't all sitting in the room together, working together to try to make those things happen. And we've got to build those bridges of communication with our partners. And proactive activity centers. I mean, that's Center City to me in a lot of ways. There are other opportunities out there like Lindsay Street and the lake maybe and things. But if you look at what we have envisioned for Center City and that process we went through the charrette and the form-based code, that's what's intended, is to create a more mini urban version in Norman in our downtown and Camus Corner hub, to where you can be in downtown Norman and walk to Camus Corner and not feel like you're walking miles and miles, because it's really only about 0.6 miles because I run it. They're really not that far apart, but people don't walk it because this doesn't seem like you can walk it. If we can make Center City happen and get those investments going into our urban downtown area, I think we can see a lot. We can create an area where those millennial young professionals will want to work, live, play, that will be able to attract hopefully quality jobs, because at the end of the day, that needs to be the outcome that we are seeking. Quality jobs that have benefits, that are not, at service that are not at fast food restaurants and the kinds of areas we see in the data right now where we are adding jobs. We need quality jobs that are high paying and that include benefits. And so I'm excited about what we're hearing and that we're getting that information. And I think we do all need to roll up our sleeves and get to work and working together to try to make some of these things a reality. I do want to announce a couple of announcements. There's a lot of really wonderful, fun things coming up here in Ward 4. This Saturday, the 28th, at Campus Corner, there's a pub crawl. So if that's your thing, it starts at 8 o'clock. You can go to Campus Corner and check it out and get tickets, I think, to be a part of that. And also that night, the 28th, the outdoor movies is the Goonies at the Tully Food Truck Park here on Main Street. Also on Sunday, the 29th, the Summer Breeze concert series continues at Lions Park. Caleb McGee will be performing. That's at 7:30, so it's free. So get out there and support free art and free music. On August 8th, Wednesday, at Sergio's, a great Italian restaurant right here on Gray Street, it's Wild Care Day. So go in there and get some yummy Italian food and support the great nonprofit Wild Care that helps with our animals. On Friday, August 10th, is the Second Friday Art Walk. It's a wonderful time. If you've not been, I encourage you to bring a friend, invite all your town friends, out-of-town friends to come down to downtown Norman and be a part of Art Walk. It's a really great event that's really continued to grow over the years. And then Sunday, August 12th, is another Summer Breeze concert series at Lions Park with Delhi to Dublin. And so I encourage you to come out for another free concert at the park and take advantage of all these wonderful events that we have in this great community. Thank you.
Councilmember Castleberry.
Just real quickly, Thursday is the grand opening of Gabarino's on Ednable Parkway. They moved into the old Chili, so I invite everybody to come out there and as we try and build Ednable Parkway back up. It's got to start somewhere. It's great food. Appreciate them coming in there. Just to be on, I'll go ahead and go on the record. Had we voted on item number 25, I would have voted no. So please mark that down on my Facebook friends. I would have voted no. So let's make that very clear that I'm not indecisive about this. I would have voted no. And I'm voting no now. So, okay. Last thing I will say is I appreciate all the comments about the economic development. I agree with pretty much everything everybody said. I like those situations to look at. As somebody that does internships, I've had internships in my firm for almost 10 years now. So they're great. I love college students. They have fantastic work ethic. They are better than some of your full-time employees. And the best part I like about it is when you interview them, their last question is this paid? And I unfortunately say yes. When I realize they'll work for free, man, I should take advantage of that. But I think the internship, and I'm very proud to say all but one of my interns, and that was her choice, have gone on to work for Big Four accounting firms. Unfortunately, we don't have any in Norman, but I think it helps. It's a win-win situation. They get very valuable experience. I get some dedicated employees. We get the connection back to Norman. And I'm starting to see some of them now come back and call and say, hey, I'm tired of working at 80, 90 hours a week. Can I come back? I said, without question. I only work 95 hours a week, so you're more than happy to work on my deal. The only problem is they all still want to make the same amount of money, but they all want to work for 50 hours. And so once we kind of work that part out of it, but they do want to come back to Norman. And so I think that the internships and those type of things get people placed in there, contact them in there. It's a win-win situation. It's great for the students. They want to learn. I think it helps a lot of times because they'll ask you they ask those questions like, why do we do that? And you just can't say, well, that's the way we've always done it. I mean, you have to explain to them why you do it. And every once in a while you say, well, that's the way we've always done it. So you got some better ideas. And so I think it helps. I learn from them. They learn from me a little bit, I hope. And, but I would love to see that expanded to other different organizations. I know I work on the NEDC incubator committee where we have I'm on the advisory committee and the new startup companies. A lot of times just startup companies just need some help. And that's where you grow. And those incubators and those type of things. So I'm glad we're going to take that kind of approach. I think you still have to have your larger employers, but your smaller employers are the ones that really make the difference. If you look at job growth, it's always small business that grows. It's always that person that goes out on their own, takes that risk. My favorite saying is, an entrepreneur is the guy that works 80 hours a week so he doesn't have to work 60 hours a week for somebody else. So with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I believe there's a time to speak up and there's a time to shut up, and I think I'll exercise the latter.
All righty. Yes, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments here. The first had just to follow up on some of the comments that were made about Norman Ford. And just, of course, many people were there, and we appreciate everyone coming out to support that. I guess I just wanted to give a special shout out tonight to CART. Of course, CART was a great partner here and was able to provide the shuttle service that allowed us to deal with the overwhelming number of people that showed up that day, and we appreciate them. And of course, CART set up their operation there at the Norman Public School athletic complex there, and so we appreciate their contributions of their facilities to help us kind of deal with some of the logistical issues that morning. Next, just to update, and I try to hit some of the major capital improvements that are going on throughout the community. And this is one at Northeast Lions Park. As you can see here, we have an old restroom circa 1980. It was removed last week. So the construction of the new facilities began this week. Of course, this new restroom building will include a covered picnic area, an announcement board, and it'll be similar to the restroom facility we have over in Lions Park. And so just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Of course, Northeast Lions Park will also be seeing some future improvements down the road, and some walking trails, playground, parking lot, disc golf, and some other amenities. And they're coming down the road in a few years, but just wanted to mention those as well. Next, particularly just kind of coming off the week that we had last week in terms of the high temperatures, and it just gives you a feel for how much our water production capabilities are impacted when the temperatures start, bumping up over 100 degrees every day. That week we saw our water production had to go up about 11% just to meet that need. And so just wanted to make that comment. And really one of the things we've tried to do through our odd, even water rotation programs to try to take those peaks out of our water production as well as our water consumption. When we're in those days where it's very hot and we're pumping at our maximum level, we're putting a strain on the pumps and the piping and treatment equipment, and those can often be the days where you have major breaks in the system. And so the odd even water rotation program is really important. It helps take the stress off of our system during the summer, and we appreciate all of our citizens' participation in helping there. If you go to our website, you can see some of just the the water's worth it tips, conservation tips, and we mentioned some of them there. Obviously, just watering early in the morning, late in the evening. All those tips are there, and we just encourage people to follow those and to use those. Next is our Main Street streetscape enhancement project, but is soon to be following with the pavement reconstruction project. And so this pavement mill and overlay is scheduled to begin on July the 30th. This is going to run from Park Drive to James Garner first. That'll be kind of the first phase, and then from Jones to Porter in the second phase. And of course, we'll always leave one lane open to traffic during that, and one side of the street will be open for parking. You'll see it'll be very kind of mirrors the other sections that we've seen there with colored and stamped asphalt at the intersections. And so this 7 blocks should take about 4 weeks, and we should have all the phases completed on this work by August of this year. And so hopefully we've, if you look back, we've gone into that area. We've replaced our major utilities through there, and we've, of course, the new sidewalk system, the landscaping, and then the final piece of that is going to be the mill and overlay. And so that area is going to look tremendously different here just in a few weeks. And then finally, the Stormwater Citizens Committee, we have an open house coming up on July the 25th, and you can see some of the future dates there as well. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I just going to make a fairly brief comment, and it will kind of follow along with what Councilmember Clark said. I too have appreciated the Economic Development Strategic Plan. It's been a great process. I have learned a lot. Every time I hear Matt present, I understand it in another way. I do want to go back to the fact that we did not decide to continue the economic analysis study, because that was a really important piece. One of our big concerns was what this would do for the rest of our city. Well, every time we do any kind of economic development, we're going to care about those things. So I really was sorry that we didn't continue to do that. I'm glad to put the TIF down now. So, but I still think that it's our job to be as informed as possible. And I got a number of emails, and I've had a number of people say this to me, what I'm going to read. This was an email I got today. And it basically says, I am concerned that the arena proposal has gotten an emotional consideration rather than an objective consideration. I was disappointed to see the council terminate plans for further study. My hope is that Norman would always be a model for thoughtful study of proposals that could significantly enhance our way of life. I ask that any actions taken from this point forward be consistent with such practice. And that's the part I agree with the most, is that whatever proposals we're considering, that we consider them very carefully and we use as much data and information as we possibly can get so that we make good decisions. And we're going to need to do that as we move forward with this strategic plan. So with that, I would say good evening to everybody, and the meeting is adjourned.